For Reaper Metal Productions, I am Adam of Unbaptized Records, here to make a brand new video today. And today's video is going to be something a little different. This was games inspired by an old Hellcast episode, which I will link to below and timestamp. Essentially, grabbing a random patch from a pile, and then in 30 seconds or less, giving just a brief description or conversation about the band. I'm going to probably go for a minute, just to give myself a little more time, just to maybe give a little more context to the band, especially if it's a band you haven't heard of. I have a huge stack of patches here. I have one vest that I'm almost finished with, and a second one that I'm starting soon. So I have tons of extras, a couple of doubles and triples in here. So if I end up pulling a patch with the same band, I'll just put it back in the pile. But first off, I'm just going to really randomize it here, try not to look. See what we got first. Okay, number one is Poison. So not the U.S. Poison, of course. Poison from Germany. I don't know a ton about the band. I do enjoy one of the comps that they have. They really didn't exist for too long, unfortunately. They're only around for mostly in the 80s, I think maybe the early 90s, and that was it. But they have a really cool picture disc that I have from Hell's Headbangers. I don't think it's not on their label, but it was definitely one that they had in their distro. I really like the sound. It's sort of like primitive Black Death, kind of on the longer side for some of their songs, which is not why I'm the biggest fan, but I do enjoy them, and I think they're definitely worth checking out. One of the OGs in that style of music, especially being a band from the 80s and having pretty extreme music for that time. I think Poison from Germany is definitely worth checking out if you haven't heard of them already. All right, again, trying to totally randomize and not pay attention. Okay, next, Black Knife. This is a band I've talked about before, showed off their music. They are a fairly new band. They are like a blackened sort of punk band that I mentioned before that I discovered from an interview with Dawn of the Dead and J-Dog talking about just answering questions, and Don happened to have the Black Knife shirt on. These guys are awesome. This was a recent release that they put out. They have it also on LP. I know I showed off the CD. They have a couple of tape versions as well. I don't know if there's any LP copies left, but there was a few like band copies for sale recently, but they're probably long gone, so you may only be able to buy the CD, but I highly recommend Black Knife. They're a great newer band from the US that I feel like not a lot of people talk about or have heard of, so definitely go check them out. All right, what's next? All right, next we have an awesome band, one-man band out of Scotland, Hell Ripper. Definitely another band I've shown off before. I thought this was a really good album. The album art of the show here, it's definitely not my favorite, but I really enjoy all their music. I think James is an extremely talented musician, and it's like that black and thrash style of music that I'm a real big fan of. And I recently purchased a compilation that came out that Reaper Metal originally did the CD of, and I believe Peacefield did the LP. So I had the LP. Not sure if I showed it off, but I definitely will at some point. I think a Hell Ripper collection video is definitely worth doing, and this is definitely an example of a band I have multiple patches of. All right, what's next? All right, this one's an easy one. I'm wearing the shirt, Mortici, extreme brutal death metal band from the late 80s out of New York. Really doesn't need much explanation. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you know who they are. That's an easy one. I mean, definitely a newer band for me, but I really do enjoy them. I own all their albums on CD and LP, and I recently showed off the picture disc of the demo that I have now 2 copies of. So really not much more needs to be said about Mortici. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Get a few more in here. Let's see what we got. All right, this is another easy one for me, is Exhumed. This is the artwork for the most recent tour. This was the tour I got to do a meet and greet for, which was awesome. I had already met their drummer, Mike Hamilton, when I went to Ohio, but Exhumed is my second favorite metal band of all time. I've liked them now for 20 years. I talked about how somehow I messed up and missed Slaughter Cult. But if you do love Slaughter Cult, which I do now that I've obviously heard it, definitely go and check out the out of press, but definitely available on Discogs double LP that House Headbangers did, Saw Blade Shape. I have a double LP Saw Blade Shape for All Guts No Glory, but I don't have the Slaughter Cult one. That one's great too, so definitely worth picking up. But Exhumed is one of my favorite bands. I think if you know anything about me, you probably know that. They're just absolutely awesome, and most things that Matt Harvey does is also awesome too. All right, what else? Okay. Oh, Misery Index. This is a band that I think gets not a lot of attention at all. This is fantastic. I love Misery Index. I'm a huge Deicide fan, or sorry, I'm a huge Deicide fan, but Dying Fetus fan. But I also love when band members broke off and formed Misery Index. So whether or not the band still likes each other, that's to be determined. I don't know the backstory, but the cool thing about them is I see it like this. If you're a fan of early Metallica and you like Dave Mustaine, then when Dave broke off and did Megadeth, now you have two bands to enjoy. I kind of see it like this. Misery Index is more grindy. The Dying Fetus, I think the drums are way more just crazy awesome, a little bit less technical than the current drummer, who I still think is also pretty good. Misery Index is fantastic. So to me, now instead of the band members quitting, you have two separate bands that are both going, that are both awesome. So if you don't know Misery Index or you slept on them for a while, maybe you checked them out years ago and haven't given them much interest recently, go back and listen to their old stuff, especially if you're a Dying Fetus fan. You're not going to be disappointed. Let's grab maybe a few more here. Okay. All right. Seems to be all bands in my top. So Toxic Metal Punk. This is a Toxic Holocaust patch. For some reason, people give them a lot of hate. I don't know why. I never understood it. I think if you like the early stuff, there's really no reason not to like their later stuff. They didn't change that much when they went to Relapse, calling them Toxic Hollywood and all that crap. Who cares if they're out in the underground? I think Joel Grind's another talented one-man musician, one-man band. He's got a lot of side projects, does a lot of side work, like mixing and mastering, and I think even recording music. But Toxic Holocaust is a great band. They're in my top 5 as well, so I really can't say too much more about them other than they're awesome. If you don't like them because you think they sold out, I think that's just a really stupid take. Okay, let's get 2 more here. Oh, all right. Swedish melodic death metal band Carnosus. They're a band that maybe you're not as familiar with because they're not super underground. Um, I think they're great. They are now on their 3rd album. That I have all 3 on LP and CD, and I also have a few of the tapes of theirs that came out, especially the ones that were, I think, both releases they did. The first and second album on tape are both pretty rare. One, there was only 25 made, and one, there was 50. I think I have 2 copies of each. And they also did their EP/mini album on CD and LP as well, and have that. Carnosus is awesome if you're a fan of like At the Gates, Black Dahlia Murder, stuff like that. I know not a lot of people in the underground talk about that kind of music, but I think melodic death metal is actually really good and gets a bad rap. So if you're unfamiliar with the band, they're of course a newer band. Check them out. Carnosus from Sweden. Let's do one last one here. Let's see. Trying to get a band I haven't talked about yet. Okay. Electrocutioner. Another band you've definitely heard of if you're familiar with this channel. I did an interview with Mark of Electrocutioner. They're a modern day Long Island thrash band. I think that they're definitely one of the rising stars in the scene. I can't wait to see what their new album sounds like this year. My only criticism I've said is that I didn't care for all the synth intros and interludes they did on their last album. I thought it was a little overdone, even though I do enjoy it. Maybe sprinkled in once in an album. I think that maybe their last album had it a little too much. So I would have preferred less and more of just the music, the thrashing music. But their new album's coming out soon. They just got signed to a label, which is awesome. So I think their new release is coming out, definitely at least on CD, I would hope, in the upcoming weeks or months. That was it for this video. I'm definitely going to do more. I have a huge stack of patches here. So I will see you in the next video.